Well, my name's Brian Lauer, and I'm here because I care about your future. I really do. I want you guys to have the best college experience and the best life. And I want you to realize that your tomorrow is, in a large part determined by the decisions you make today. All right? And where you get your decisions. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Where do you get the information? Are you getting good information to make good decisions? And, I used to tell people that, that you can get anything on the internet. And everything's just a click away. And now you don't even have to click. You can just talk into it and get what you want. And that's assuming that your search engine gives you all the information. And that might not necessarily be the case. I went into Google and I typed in Hillary Clinton is, and it's very positive. She's a man, winning, awesome, most qualified candidate. And if I were to click on Hillary Clinton is awesome, I'm going to see page after page after page of the awesome things that she's done. And I'll have a very positive impression of Hillary. However, if I go into Yahoo, it's not quite so positive. It's a liar, evil, a criminal, the devil, a crook. If I go into Bing, it's even worse. It's a filthy liar, a lying crook, a practicing witch, a murderess. If I click on one of these, I'm going to think, they should lock her up and throw away the key. It's a pretty small sample size, so I typed in deaths associated with. And in Yahoo, it's Clinton, Clinton, the top 2. And Bing, it's Clinton, 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 the top 4. But when I go into Google, it's Trump, Bush, Whitewater, which points to Clinton, by the way, and obesity. And even when I type in Clinton, it's like, we don't know what you're talking about. Nothing to see here, move along. So they either don't know or they don't want me to know about the 40-some people that died mysteriously. Many of them right before they were going to testify. And that's not even including the 4 that died this summer. And so, it looks like a political statement, but it's not. It's a search engine statement. The fact is, Hillary exists. And whether we think she's the best thing since frozen pizza or she should be locked away and throw away the key, it all hinges on what search engine we're using. So the question that I have for you tonight is, what is a search engine for your life? What's influencing your thinking? If you need to make a decision, where do you get your good information? Is it your friends, your family, your relatives, your coworkers, your classmates? Is it the media, movies, music? Is it Oprah? And what if they're all using the same search engine? Are you still getting all the information you need to make a good decision? Another question is, who do you trust to give you good information? Who do you trust to tell you the truth? How many people trust the government to tell you the truth? Nobody. Okay. How many people trust the media to tell you the truth? Nobody. How many trust the education system to tell you the truth? Okay. How many people trust your textbooks to tell you the truth? Okay. All right. And then the next question is, why do you think the way you think? You ever thought about that? Why do you believe what you believe? Now, the way you answer that question is going to depend in a large part on what culture has influenced you the most. And there are cultures and subcultures in America and around the world that are very authoritative. They've got these authority figures that say, hey, their attitude is, hey, just leave the thinking to us. The experts will tell you what to think. We'll do the heavy lifting. You guys don't worry about that. Just listen up when we talk. And you see that a lot. And they get a lot of power and prestige and money with their position of authority. And they don't like opposing views because that's a threat to their money and their power. And they don't like questions, really, especially questions they can't answer. And so, that's one culture. There's another culture where you can ask questions. It's like, you're making a statement, but why should I believe you instead of you? And you're making a statement, but what are the reasonings of that statement? Was that reasoning valid? And by what authority are you making these statements? Oh, and Dave, could you get them some handouts? There's some handouts right there. Everybody can have a handout, that way you don't have to, there's a lot of, hey, welcome. I'm glad you could make it.
Thanks.
All right. And so we can ask questions. So of those two cultures, which culture would you rather live in? One where you're told what to think, or one where you have the freedom to think? All right. Who would like to be told what to think and memorize and conform? Who would like to have the freedom to think? Exactly right. And that's what we're going to cover tonight. And we're going to get into that. But first, I'd like to sincerely thank each and every one of you guys for coming tonight. You've taken precious time out of your life, and once this time is gone, it's never coming back. So this talk is designed to be on point and on purpose. We're going to cover a lot of information rather quickly. That's why you have the handouts. And you can check my sources. And we're going to cover some information that might surprise you. It might even shock you. And I was shocked putting this thing together. And we're going to cover some controversial topics. Now, a controversy doesn't mean that that's not a bad thing. It just means there's strong opinions on each side of the issue. Okay? And you just take the idea and you put it on the table and you critique it. You can debate it and discuss it. And you don't have to worry about offending an idea's feeling because an idea doesn't have any feelings. and we're going to talk on some pretty tough topics, but understand that's why we have the freedom of speech. That's why our founding fathers didn't want the federal government to be able to take our ability to talk, because we need to talk about these issues, especially when it comes to positions of authority. And they believed in it so much they signed their own death warrant, really. When they signed the Declaration of Independence, if they would have lost, they would have been killed. Ben Franklin said, he said, "Gentlemen, we must hang together because if we don't, we most assuredly will hang separately." And they would have. They gave us sayings like, "Give me liberty or give me death, and I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." You know what they didn't do? They didn't run around saying, "The British are coming, the British are coming, hang up your gun-free zone signs and run for your safe space." They didn't do that. And by the way, the University of Chicago, they sent letters to all the freshmen this year that said, "We do not condone trigger warnings, we do not condone safe spaces, and we will not cancel anybody who might be controversial." Basically, let your ideas rise and fall on their merit. There's no protected places. All right, I got a little off topic there, but has anybody ever heard the saying, "Beware of one hand clapping"? Anybody ever heard that? I heard that growing up, and it didn't make any sense. And now I see it happening quite frequently, really. Just like you need two hands to clap, there's two hands to every story, or two sides to every story. And if you're only seeing one side of the story over and over again, chances are the other one's been eliminated or censored by the people with authority. So when you hear of something being censored or being made illegal to talk about, it's probably because they have some points they'd like to make, some questions they'd like to ask, and these people can't answer them. And so they're going to eliminate it. So that's what a lot of this talk will be tonight, is the opposing view. Okay, something that the opposing view would like to ask, but they're not given the microphone. The people with the power control what you talk about, or who gets to say what. And they control the media, and we'll get into that. But it reminds me of this, anybody ever read Propaganda? Have you read Propaganda, Patrick? No. It was written in the 20s, written by Sigmund Freud's nephew. His name is Edward Bernays, and he says, and Hitler used this, this is how he controlled the masses. And this is what he says: "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country." And so what the recipe to control a country is, you have somebody who has a reputation, or an organization, make a statement and say you have all this evidence backing up that statement. And if anybody questions them, they just start to ridicule them. "You're a denier, you're a freak, a prude." They do an ad hominem attack on the person instead of answering his questions. And they'll just say there's all this evidence. And what I see is evolution does that. Evolution says, there's a biology student down at the kiosk today. And I was talking to him and I said, "What's the best evidence for evolution?" And that's an excellent question. And most people just stop and pause and they have to think about it. And he said, "Well, it's not just one thing, it's a bunch of things." And I said, "Like what?" And he really couldn't answer it. And so to combat this, and yet they always say it's a fact, it's a fact, it's a fact, And to combat that, Ken Ham had this ark built of biblical proportions. Who's heard of the ark in Kentucky? It's 500 feet some long, and Bill Nye, he was on Australian TV, and he says, "If Ken Ham wants to have enemies, I'm going to be his biggest nemesis." And Ken Ham, to his credit, said, "I don't want to be enemies, I want to be friends." And he invited them to tour the ark. And Bill Nye, to his credit, he went. Because when they debated each other a couple of years ago at the Creation Museum, Bill Nye didn't walk around and see why Ken Ham was saying what he was saying. He just said, basically went in there and said, "You're wrong," and he left. But now he went through the ark and he comes out saying that Ken Ham is brainwashing people. Well, let's just think about this. How do you brainwash somebody? Does anybody think they're being brainwashed? Does anybody think that? No, well, okay. Who's brainwashing you? You? I am? Okay. Yeah, see now to brainwash, let's define the terms. Okay, brainwash is to be so thoroughly indoctrinated that your beliefs and behaviors change. Okay, that's a fancy way of saying you're given selected information so you think or behave a certain way. Okay? And how could you do that? You could be lied to. Somebody could lie to you and you could believe it. And that somebody is somebody you trust or somebody who has authority. Because if you don't trust them, you're not going to believe them. And they might not even know they're lying to you. So that's one way. You could believe a lie. The other way is you only see half the story. Okay? The other way is you can rewrite history. You know, if you don't have to win the debate if you can rewrite history. And then another way is to just ignore certain facts. See what Bill Nye does. If anybody's brainwashing somebody, it's Bill Nye. He's only showing one side of the story. He's using the atheistic search engine. He's not telling people about a biblical search engine where people can look at both sides.
That's not how I learned about them.
Right.
I learned about Bill Nye by watching a lot of educational videos about theology, archaeology, genetics.
Okay. I'll encourage you to write down comments.
Well, I thought this was a two-sided thing.
At the end, it will. Because we have a lot of right. So is everybody else's, and we have a lot of.
I'm sorry.
We have a lot of material to cover, and I'll be happy to do that at the end. We'll get through all this material, and then they can leave if they want, and then if you have questions, then we can talk about it. So basically, if you're showing both sides, then they can think about it. But what's happening in our education system, you're showing one side, so you memorize and conform. And so that would be one way to do it. If you go to the Creation Museum, anybody ever been there? All right, a couple. They're going to show both sides of the issue. They're going to show evolution, warts and all. There's a lot of holes in evolution. And if you start doing that, your career's in jeopardy. And you can read about it, and this is on your sheet. Slaughter of the Dissidents by Jerry Bergman. Volume after volume. And if you look at the backside, there's Iowa State, Dr. Gonzalez. He was just a rising star in astronomy. He had 68 peer-reviewed journals. 68. And you needed about 15 to 16 to get tenure at Iowa State. And he wrote this book called Privileged Planet, which basically said, the place that's perfect for life is also the perfect place for discovery. And they didn't like that at Iowa State. They said, we're just random. There's nothing special about the Earth. But that's what his scientific mind added it all up. Nobody else gets a total solar eclipse like we do. And what did they do? They didn't give him tenure. So when you don't bow down to the evolutionary dogma, your job's at risk. Mark Armitage is another guy that he got fired for finding a dinosaur bone cell. That's all he did. He got it published in a peer-reviewed journal. Nobody else had ever found a dinosaur bone cell. And this is in California, and they fired him. They didn't give him a promotion. He didn't win any prizes. It went against their evolutionary dogma, so they fired him. And you can see more of this if you're interested in that. We got SCSU, it's on YouTube, SCSU Evolution versus Science. I got a YouTube channel at the bottom of that sheet. So you're going to see both of them, both parts. And what we need to realize is we have the same facts, the same planets, the same stars, the same animals, the same radiometric dating, the same fossils. But what's different is why do we get different answers? Because what we believe is different. What we believe about the past is different, what we believe about the present and the future is different. Like I got this fossil clam right here. If you believe in millions of years in evolution, you think, see, look at it, millions of years old. But if you believe in the Bible, you're going to say that's a sign of a flood. Worldwide catastrophic flood. And this clam is in the closed position, therefore it was buried alive, because when they die, they open up. And you get clams all over the world in the closed position. And we'd go more in depth into that on SCSU NOAA. But they're going to say over and over and over again that you can't teach religion in the science class. You've heard that? Okay, let's define some terms. And I agree, you shouldn't teach religion in the science class. If you're going to teach some scientific, it should be observable, testable, repeatable, falsifiable, just like the scientific method. That's what we should teach in science. Well, guess what, folks? Evolution is none of that. It's not testable, it's not repeatable. You just believe it by faith. And you've heard them say that, but you get this, remember? Somebody makes a statement and they say all this evidence, you'll say evolution is a fact, it's a fact, it's a fact. And the altar call for an evolutionist is, we have to teach evolution or we're going to fall behind the other countries as far as innovators and inventors. Bill Nye said that probably 3 or 4 times in the debate. That's the altar call for the evolutionist. Let's just see what Raymond Damadian says about that.
Hi, my name is Dr. Raymond Damadian. I am a young Earth creation scientist and believe that God created the world in 6 24-hour days, just as recorded in the book of Genesis. By God's grace and the devoted prayers of my godly mother-in-law, I invented the MRI scanner in 1969. The idea that scientists who believe the earth is 6,000 years old cannot do real science is simply wrong.
Simply wrong. I got a question for Bill Nye. How far did we fall behind the other countries when a creationist invented the MRI? We didn't fall behind at all. We got catapulted ahead of it. Okay? See, evolution has nothing to do with inventions. What did evolution have to be true to make this computer? Or to put a man on the moon? Or to build this building? Or make that projector? See, evolution is a belief system about the past. And I agree, we shouldn't teach religion in the science class. Evolution is a religion. It's believed by faith. We can't observe it. And it's belief in a supernatural. You can't observe it. It's a religion. It's a belief in a supernatural that tells us where we came from and where we're going. That's what evolution does. It tells us where we came from and where we're going. Where we go into the ground, there's no purpose. And there's a heat death at the end of the universe. Okay, and Brian Young, he was at a state university one time, and a professor came up to him and said, "You shouldn't even be here. You're taking your faith and your religion and you're passing it off as science and you're confusing the kids." And Brian said, "So let me ask you a question. You know, this subatomic particle that supposedly had all the matter in the whole universe in it, supposedly blew up 13.8 billion years ago? You call it a singularity? So where did that come from?" And the professor says, "We don't know yet. Science has no explanation." Science has no explanation for that? No, not yet. So what you're telling me, sir, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you believe in that particle by faith. And the professor, yes, you believe in it by faith. And people might say, well, you're just a creationist because you believe the Bible. And that's true. I never even heard about creation until I was in my 40s. You know, I think it's the best kept secret in America. And, you know, I'd heard about the Big Bang and the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve and ape-like ancestors and Noah's Ark and dinosaurs, and it never fit into a puzzle. It was very contradictory. And then I saw this video that says, hey, we're not putting two puzzles together, we're not putting one puzzle together, we're putting two puzzles together. The first thing you do is to separate the pieces. Some are based on God's word, some are based on man's word. You separate them, the pieces fit perfectly. One of them's true and one of them's false. Now, I'm helping people figure this one out. Oh yeah, if you want to see both sides of this issue, we got this book in 6 days. This will be in your notes too. This is 50 scientists who believe in creation based on the science and why evolution does not work. You aren't going to learn that in your general eds. I got your general ed books here. They aren't going to talk about the warts of evolution. They want you to believe in evolution. But you need to get to the scientific journals, and there's a whole lot of problems with evolution. All right. But people will say, well, you know, if you believe in the Bible, you're limiting science. You say, Brian, you know, you're unwilling to change. It's like, yeah, I am. Why would I want to change? I'm right. You know, and it's not that I'm right, it's that God's word is right. But what the atheist doesn't realize is they're just as limited in their position. You know, Eugenie Scott was interviewing Ken Ham when the Creation Museum opened up, and she goes, so you admit it then, you start with the Bible. He goes, yep, that's right. You're not prepared to change anything in the Bible, are you? She goes, and he goes, no. And you're not prepared, or are you prepared to change anything in Genesis? He goes, no. He goes, see, that's religion. You know, I'm a scientist. We start with the evidence, we develop our theories, and when new evidence comes to light, we're prepared to change our theories. And that's what real science is. And, you know, your ideas are stuck, mine are not. And Ken Ham says, oh, let me ask you a question, Dr. Scott. And he goes, you say you're an atheist, is that right? She goes, yeah. And he goes, is there a God? No. God doesn't exist? That's right. Is the Bible true? No. Do you believe the creation account in Genesis? No. So tell me, are you prepared to change any of that? The evolutionists are just as stuck as the creationists. They won't go. They'll think up until there's an intelligent design, and then they have to stop thinking, because if they keep going, they can lose their job. That's what happened to Dean Kenyon in California. He was right. He wrote the textbook for chemical predestination, and some creationists gave him some books to read, and he couldn't refute what they were saying. And it's like, you know what? We were intelligently designed, and they fired him. You can't think past that. But this professor was honest enough to admit it. He says, even if all the data point to an intelligent designer, such an hypothesis is excluded from science because it is not naturalistic. They define God out of the equation. And once you define God out of the equation, you paint yourself into a corner, because now you have to believe in miracles. You don't have a miracle maker, and we'll get into that. And there's a lot of scientists that came to creation because of the evidence. Gary Parker, Jonathan Sarfati, this guy named Spike Pizarris. He was in the military space program. I heard him speak in June down in Northwestern. The Creation Science, the Twin Cities Creation Science Association, they have a speaker coming every month. And next week it's going to be Mary Jo Nutting. She's going to talk about how the flood model explains the Badlands, Devil's Tower, and the Black Hills. So if anybody wants to go down there and road trip, talk to me. It's going to be a good talk, and I'm going to do what I can to get there. But anyhow, Spike, he was in the military space program for years and years and years. And he went in as an evolutionist and an atheist, and he came out as a Christian and a creationist. And I went down there early so I could eat lunch with the leaders and with Spike, and it's like, Spike, what happened? What happened in that space program? He said there was a creationist. And Spike thought he was an idiot. doesn't he know that science can explain everything without God? And he started to challenge the creationist foundation. And the creationist, 1 Peter 3:15, be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh. He had answers for the challenges. And his worldview was solid because it was built on a rock. And then he turns the tables. And he starts to ask Spike about his worldview. And after a year and a half, it crumbled because it was built on the sand. And I said, hey, Spike, did he ask you anything that made you stop in your tracks? Made you just stop and rethink your worldview? And he said, yeah. He said, the guy asked me, how do you believe in the Big Bang and the laws of physics at the same time? You aren't going to learn that in your general eds. There's problems with the Big Bang. Just what St. Cloud State's telling you to do. Think creatively and think critically. So whenever evolution pops up, I want you to start raising hands and start asking questions. Wide-eyed and innocent, because they should be able to answer them. Question 1. What caused the universe? This is the law of causality, the law of cause and effect. Every effect has a cause, and the effect can never be greater than the cause. So what caused the universe? And if you haven't noticed, the universe is pretty big. So whatever caused it has to be even bigger. And you go into the atheistic search engine, and it's going to whirl and grind and spit out things like multiverse and quantum fluctuations and Boltzmann brain paradox, but it really doesn't talk about what caused it. And those are all supernatural. You can't observe any of that. You go into the biblical search engine, hey, first page, first paragraph, in the beginning, God created. God created this universe. Just like this building wasn't put together by chance random processes. They didn't throw darts at a board to figure out how thick to make the walls. It's designed by specifications. Only a fool would think this came together by chance, or a painting painted itself. The shirt on your back, how many people think that evolved over billions of years in the rainforest? And they just happened to fit you. And it's got the little information on the tag. That's a sign of intelligence. My question is, if your shirt couldn't evolve, what makes you think that your body could evolve? Which is a gazillion times more complicated than your shirt. So where did the matter come from? Bill and I got this question, and using it during the Q&A time. Where did the matter for the Big Bang come from? Using the atheistic search engine? Don't know, it's a mystery. Ken Ham says, Bill, there's a book that explains where the matter came from. And by the way, the universe is one, universe, one single spoken sentence. You know what the verse was? And God said. And God said. All through that first chapter, and God spoke this universe into existence. This is the first law of thermodynamics that we're talking about. Matter and or energy can't be created. This is a law. He created or destroyed. It can go from one form to another form, but it can't pop out of nowhere. You can take a little matter and make a lot of energy, like an atomic bomb. Or you can take a lot of energy and those particle accelerators and get particles going close to the speed of light, slam them into each other, and you get more particles than you started with. You can go from one to the other, but you just can't come out of nowhere. That's a scientific law. Okay, but the biblical model is God spoke it into existence, and how powerful God can do that. It's a miracle that God can do it. Okay, the atheists have no miracle. They believe in miracles, but not a miracle maker. And the next is, how did matter organize? This is the second law of thermodynamics. Things tend to disorder. They don't go, if a system's left to itself, basically it goes towards randomness. Just look at your room or your hair in the morning, it just doesn't clean up itself. It's always more random, all right? And our whole universe is winding down. And the stars are burning up, the rotations are slowing down. The question is, I think Newton said, we can explain how the planets move, but we can't explain how the motion started. Well, if the universe is winding down, who wound it up? You know, we have genetics. Our genes are falling apart. Mutation after mutation. Every generation, we're getting more mutations in there. It's good information going bad. Where did the good information come from? You know, in the Bible, God did it. God spoke it into existence. How did stars form? You go into the atheistic search engine, it's going to be the nebula theory. Okay? It's going to be the Big Bang produces hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium, and then there's this big star, that gas cloud, and it collapsed on itself and exploded and made stars who collapsed on stars, and they just keep exploding and collapsing. Well, our sky should be full of supernova remnants if that's the case, and it's not. All right, and that violates Boyle's law. Okay, the gas pressure. Gary Parker was learning this in grad school. They told him about the nebula theory, and he asked the professor, how in the world does that happen? You know, that the gas pressure greatly exceeds, you know, is 60 to 100 times, 100,000 times greater than the gravity. It's going to dissipate. And if you look at this flying lizard nebula, if you look in the middle right here, there's particles banging up and banging into something, banging down, banging into each other. That's what they do in the middle. But on the very edge, when they bang out, they keep going. There's nothing to make it come back. And then you got another layer that's out of the other outer layer. And it just keeps going and keeps going. This cloud is not going to collapse on itself. It's going to dissipate. That's Boyle's law. And they aren't going to say it in your astronomy class. I took it. But what they're saying in the scientific journals is the formation of stars is one of the most fundamental problems in astrophysics. No current model can reproduce all the observations. Well, they should be a little more specific. No current model of the atheistic search engine can predict all that we observe. But the biblical model does. The heavens declare the glory of God. He made the stars also. That's the only way it's going to work. They aren't going to look in that model, though. And how did planets form? You know, you go onto your textbook right here, and you're going to learn about how the planets form. And this is what it says. The origin of the geosphere is the story of the birth of our planet. Now, I agree with that. This is a story. There's no evidence for it at all. This doesn't even be in the science book. It's somebody's idea. And it says the aggregation of nebular debris into a planet is a very violent process. That's a true statement. I go along with that. Bodies ranging in size from dust to small planets collide to create large bodies. There's a problem with that. See, as the theory goes, you got this gas that turns into dust, that turns into pebbles, that turns into rocks, that turns into planetesimals, they're like asteroids, and those turn into planets. The problem that they're not telling you is in this statement right there. They say, oh, it just happened. There's a problem with that. There's no planetesimals. How this process, see, the theory, it works up to rocks about this big. And then once they slam into each other, they break apart. Especially if they're going thousands of miles per second. They're going to start disintegrating. They aren't going to go into, they can't make them get bigger than this big. Okay, and this is an article in Nature. How this process continues from meter-sized boulders to kilometer-scale planetesimals is a major unsolved problem. Boulders are expected to stick together poorly and to spiral into the protostar in a few hundred years orbits owing to the headwind from the slower rotating gas. So planetesimals, that's a problem. And this guy says that objects must have grown very rapidly. Must have grown, that's a fuzzy word. Must have. There's no evidence for that at all. Objects must have grown very rapidly and from sub-meter-sized pebbles into 100-kilometer-sized bodies like Rhode Island, possibly in a single leap, because it can't do it step by step. They keep breaking apart. And how did life begin? Oh my, that's a real good question. How did life begin? Let's take a look at how complicated life is. This is happening in almost every cell of your body.
You are watching this process called transcription in real time. It's happening right now in almost every cell in your body. The blue molecule racing along the DNA is reading the gene. It's unzipping the double helix and copying one of the two strands. The yellow chain snaking out of the top is a copy of the genetic message, and it's made of a close chemical cousin of DNA called RNA. The building blocks to make the RNA enter through an intake hole. They are matched to the DNA, letter by letter, to copy the A's, C's, T's, and G's of the gene. The only difference is that in the RNA copy, the letter T is replaced with a closely related building block known as U.
Letter by letter. There's that information in our DNA. Francis Crick, who discovered this, who was a co-discoverer, he said that he saw how marvelously complex it was, and he realized it could not have evolved. And so what did he do? Did he believe in intelligent design or creation? No. He came up with panspermia. You can go Google that. He says that life came from outer space. That's Francis Crick. I mean, you're believing in miracles without a miracle maker. God made the life, and let's see how your atheistic search engine in this book tries to handle that life, origin of life question. Notice at the top, to the best of our knowledge, they should clarify that, to the best of our atheistic knowledge. Okay, and what does it say down at the bottom? Somehow, despite the harsh environment, living organisms appeared about 3.8 billion years ago. Somehow, that's in a science book. Somehow, that's fiction. That's what they think happened.
That's your
somehow.
Science book,
What?
That's your science book, though, right?
No, this is what I bought this at your bookstore. I got ripped off like crazy. $130 for one, 85 bucks for the other one. I tried to sell them back, and they won't even take one of them back, and the other one they give me like $10 for. You know, you guys know what that's like. But this is what they use in your general ed science book. What's that?
We put a lot of books in that bookstore.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
But this is
Bibles in there.
right. But I went to see what you were learning in your classes, and this is what it's there. Somehow. You're going from the galaxy of non-life to the galaxy of life with one fuzzy word, somehow. And before that, in between, is showing how it can't happen. Well, I think you should be a little more explicit in step 2 here. He puts, then a miracle occurred. And there was a Q&A session after my last talk here, and somebody asked me, how do you think life began? Because I showed them how complicated it is. It's more than just chemicals. There's molecular machines doing what they have to do for us to live, and we can't explain it. When Darwin came up with his theory, he thought the cell was as complicated as a ping pong ball. And he says, we don't know how it happened because we don't know enough. And now we know enough, and we really don't know how it happened. And so somehow, that shouldn't be in there. So you got to watch out for these fuzzy words. And this is your science book right here. In about 10 pages, 13 pages, these words just come flowing off of it. When you just look out for words like, as best as we can surmise, the story of origins apparently arose, some scientists speculate, probably originated, probably diverged, our best guess from an atheistic worldview. And these words just pour off the page like water off of Niagara Falls. When you see a word like that, just cross out the sentence. There's no evidence for it all. Yeah, they can think that. Some scientists speculate that, we came from a rock. But other scientists think God created us. They aren't giving them the same equal time. Okay, and another question is, how did consciousness come from matter? Bill Nye got this during Q&A too. You know what he said using his atheistic search engine? He said, how did consciousness come from matter? He goes, don't know, it's a mystery. Ken Ham says, Bill, there's a book that explains where consciousness came from. And this is Genesis chapter 2. And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. That's how consciousness came about. If we're just mutated animals and our bags are just a bunch of random chemicals, why should we be able to trust any of the thinking? And why would somebody's chemical reactions in the brain be any more valid than somebody else's chemical reaction?
Perfect!
And how did new information get added to the genome? Okay? How did new information get... And anyhow. But basically, that's kind of what happened during the Q&A side. When the guy said, how did life begin? And I said, God made it. Somebody stormed out like that. Miracles, you believe in miracles? I says, everybody believes in miracles. You believe nothing exploded and turned into people. I believe God made us. They're both miracles. Both miracles. And the other question is, how did new information get added to the genome? They asked Richard Dawkins that. He was silent for about 20 minutes. You can watch it on YouTube, and he says, stop recording. All they got for the atheistic search engine is mutations and natural selections. If mutations are so wonderful, who'd like to have a mutated baby? You'd like to have a mutated baby? Well, just go live on a nuclear dump. You probably will. Mutations are destructive. We don't want mutations.
Mutation and
just jot it down.
Deformation.
Yeah. But the vast majority of mutations is basically, it's not new information, it's scrambling of information. And a lot of times it's loss of information. And we can get into that during the Q&A time. Okay, where are all the transitional fossils? Where's the transitional fossils for the Cambrian explosion? You know, people say, what happened to the dinosaurs? I'd say, where did the dinosaurs come from? Where are the fossils for that? And do we have any evolutionists in the crowd? Any at all? Or would you consider yourself a gradualist like Darwin, who said things slowly changed over time? Or would you be more like a punctuated equilibriumist like Gould that said it happened in spurts quickly?
Neither. I would
Neither.
say
Oh boy, you guys are
a lot
all
of
there.
different clocks. You know,
Okay, all right.
my heart beats at a different rate as yours, so
Okay.
it's chipmunks.
Okay.
Faster.
So Gould says the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology. And this guy, Dr. Colin Peterson, he has access to more fossils than almost everybody in the world at the British Museum of Natural History. And he wrote a book, and he didn't have any transitional fossils. So somebody asked him about it. Why didn't you put them in there? And he says, I fully agree with your comment of the lack of direct illustrations of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I would certainly have included them. I will lay it on the line, there's not one such fossil for which one can make a watertight argument. That's somebody who has access to more fossils than anyone else. Mark Pagel says, but instead of finding the slow, smooth, progressive changes Lyell and Darwin had expected, that's gradualism, they saw in the fossil record rapid bursts of change, new species appearing seemingly out of nowhere, and then remaining unchanged for millions of years. Patterns hauntingly reminiscent of creation. See, the evolutionists have a hard time with that fossil record. Darwin said, if my theory be true, there are untold millions of transitionals should be there, and we haven't found one. We actually have less transitional fossils now because the horse evolution was used way back then, and that's been debunked. And it says they remain unchanged for millions of years. Look at those two. Do those look the same to you? Look like the same animal? One's fossil, one's modern. Guess what? Scientists don't think they're the same animal. Look at the scientific word for this one. The genus species. They don't think it's the same species or the same genus. Neither do they do on this one. And there's a book in the back that's full of these. The modern animals look just like the fossil animals. The only difference is the fossil animals tend to be bigger. And there's more of them in the fossil record. So if anything, we're devolving. Our animals are getting smaller, and there's less of them. And if you look at a dog, look at how much variety is in this skull and this skull. You know, they're the same genus, they're the same species. If we were to find that in the fossil record, we saw a different genus, different species. But look at this. Why wouldn't those be the same genus and species? Because they might be blinded by their evolutionary glasses saying something can't remain unchanged for millions of years. So they got to call it something else. And there's a book back there. It's Carl Werner. Then how do you explain these whales in a desert? Fossil whales in a desert. There's like 80 of them there. And the only way that a fossil gets formed is if it gets buried rapidly. Otherwise, the scavengers are going to eat it up. So those layers that buried these, all the fossils, the layers had to be going on rapidly. They're not millions of years. Okay, now does dinosaur blood last for millions of years? How many people knew that they found dinosaur blood in a dinosaur bone? Anybody? Okay, it's one of the best. No, they found blood. Mary Schweitzer. You can check that out. She took a lot of grief because everybody said dinosaurs, blood can't last 65 million years. But they said it's biofilm or whatever, and she proved that it was blood.
In the bones?
In the bones. Oh. Yeah, check that out. Mary Schweitzer. If you want more, if you go into YouTube, SCSU, Guess My Age, or Dinosaur Discoveries, you're going to see quotes from her. And I can show you quotes during the Q&A. Her saying it. And these people, they carbon dated some dinosaur bones, and they submitted them at the 2012 Western Pacific Geophysics meeting. And it said that they gave carbon-14 dating results from many bone samples from 8 dinosaur specimens. All gave dates ranging from 22 to 39,000 years. So what are they going to do with that? That's pretty hard on that evolutionary theory. You know what they did? They censored it. Remember, beware of one hand clapping. You can't have any opposing views. This is a science symposium. They should have said, hey, what methods did you use? Did you use valid methods? They didn't discuss it openly like they should have. The abstract was removed from the conference website by 2 chairmen because they could not accept the findings. Unwilling to challenge the data openly, they erased it from public view. Beware of one hand clapping, folks. You can't kick that sacred cow. The people in authority aren't going to allow it. What caused the Ice Age? Okay, that's another question.
Right.
You know, they
I gotta leave.
That's all right. That's all right.
Very
That's
soon.
all
I
right.
thought
That's all right.
Be quiet.
We're fine.
Okay.
That's all right.
Which
That's all
other
right.
one?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind. What caused the Ice Age? Evolutionists have about, using the atheistic search method, they got about They got about 40.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
All right.
Welcome.
What caused the Ice Age? They got 40 theories. You know why? Because it doesn't work. You look in the biblical model, we got the flood that explains it. See, to have an ice age, you need warmer winters so you get more precipitation in the air, and yet you need cooler summers because otherwise the snow is going to melt. And the only thing that's going to happen, it's got to snow more than melts every year. That's how you get an ice age. The only thing that explains it is the flood. The oceans were warmer, so there was more evaporation, and then the summers were cooler because they had all the aerosol from the volcanoes up there. And we go into this in SCSU NOAA if you want more of that. And the question for an atheist is, why isn't there a glacier in Alaska? How are they going to get that with their uniformitarian reasoning? That's only going to work if the oceans are warmer, like the flood model. They can't do it with their other one. And if you have the wrong perception of the past, you can have the wrong perspective of the present, and your focus is going to be wrong in the future. And guess what? If you wear a one-hand clapping, you better believe climate change. Remember they used to call it global warming until it snowed on them in Washington, D.C. during the global warming conference, and they had to change it to climate change. And you're just one of those deniers. You know, they're making a bold statement. They say they have all these evidence, and you better believe it, or they come out and ridicule you. Where did the languages come from? Evolutionists don't have a clue. You know, everything, the languages, you know, when they're on the scene, they're actually when they burst on the scene, they're more complex than what we have today. As far as inflections and tenses, you know, if anything, our languages are devolving. You know, just look at a text message or two. But the Bible can explain it, the Tower of Babel. You know, God confounded their languages, and they went out in different people groups, and that's where we get our different features and skin colors. You get isolated populations. But that's not what it says in evolution. You got master races, you got survival of the fittest. Hitler took that to its logical extreme. Let's help out evolution. Get rid of the lesser beings so the superior race can go on. But the Bible says, no, we're all of one blood.